So how do we do this? The way that I'm going to try and show you how to assess your baseline evidence is using 3 examples, which are all slightly different. So the first one I'm going to use is a project called Score Ahead by Forest Carbon. And this is the SharePoint for this project. So Eamon, you may not be so familiar with this, but this is basically what you will be sent as an auditor. And you've got a key documents folder, a report folder, which is where the audit report will sit, and then supporting documents as well. As part of the key documents, the project developer must provide a baseline map. And in this instance, the project developer, Forest Carbon, has provided this map here. And if we zoom in into the legends, they have provided in this map the photo points. So what they're saying basically, or what they're doing, is meeting the requirement of the field protocol. They've provided us an assessment unit map, and they've also shown us where all of the photos that have been taken are. What I'm going to do now, and this is what you all should do, is download this. So for you to upload, for you to basically put this document into GIS, you need to download it into your folder onto your laptop. It's just the way that you cannot basically upload a document into GIS without it being like on your actual local device. You can delete it afterwards. It's always in SharePoint, but you need to download it in the first instance. So I've downloaded the PDF. So the first thing I'll do when I'm assessing the baseline is just look at this PDF and kind of try and build up an idea of what the project is like. So in this case, you know, we've got lots of hags and gullies here by the looks of things. In fact, it's only got hags and gullies, this project. So we've only got 2 assessment units. We've got 3 actually, because they've mapped some areas of flat bare. So primarily, you've got hag gullies, the drained area, and then somewhere in this site, I think up here, you've got some areas which are mapped as flat bare. So those are those polygons there. And because these flat bare areas are nearby to the hag gullies, that they are full within that buffer area, they themselves do not have the buffer area, or should not have the buffer area applied to them. So here, for example, this is a perfect example. You've got a flat bare area here. I can tell that that has not had a 30-meter buffer area applied to it, because this orange area would extend a lot further beyond that. So I've got, okay, so now I sort of know roughly what this site is looking like. The project developer will then also be required to provide baseline condition photographs. And so in the supporting documents folder, there will always be some, well, if they haven't just provided drone imagery, there should always be some baseline condition photos. And if you open them up in SharePoint, what's good about SharePoint is you can get your photos open like this, and you can flick through them. May take a couple of seconds for each one of them to load, but you know, in the most part, it's pretty good. You don't have to download them onto your computer. Here they all are. So let's just have a look together at some of these photos, and immediately what I'm seeing is, yeah, I can see lots of photographs of hag gullies. I can see some larger areas of bare peat like this. You know, I can see that lots of them are vegetated on top. There's vegetated bases of the gullies here. So I'm starting just to think about, right, do these photographs, A, are they useful? Do they match what I expect to see? You know, is it all covered in snow? Is it just 150 photographs of mist? You know, these are the sorts of things that we're starting to pick up. So far, I would say that the photographs that I'm being provided kind of match what I'm expecting to see based only on the map that I've looked at so far. So you know, you can go through every single one, first of all, like this, if you want to, and just have a quick look at each photo. But obviously what we want to try and do maybe is target it a little bit further. So, you know, so far, so good, I would say, with this assessment. All of the photos are kind of representative of what I expect to see. But what we want to try and do is do it a bit more accurately, do our assessment a bit more accurately. So here is GIS. QGIS, which I believe you all should have downloaded. The very first thing that we need to do, and you may all have done this already, so apologies if I'm if you already have done this, but what we need to do is allow ourselves to put a base map into GIS, which we can then compare the map to the satellite imagery. The way to do this is if you go into plugins and then manage and install plugins, it's on the other screen. The one you want is called Quick Map Services. Quick Map Services, you basically select it and then you install plugin. And it will then install for you and you'll get this appear. If you go to your plugins, basically it will appear, I think once you've downloaded it, it will just appear in this top map. Do you all know this? Have you done this before? Is this brand new information?
This is new for me.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yep.
So this, Eamon, is what you'll need to do before anything else, is you'll need to install the Quick Map Services plugin.
Yeah.
Then what you do is it will appear, so you'll get this kind of, you'll get this appear. And what you can then do is search QMS and you can start searching for base maps. The one that there's two that I recommend. Well, these are the ones that I recommend. First of all, Bing Aerial. Bing Aerial, I think, is probably the best in terms of the resolution that you can get. So this is, you know, imagine if I actually knew this was a site, but here you go. This is just a random part of the Cairngorms, and from that I can see pretty good resolution. And what I'm doing there is, so to get this up in QMS, you would just search for Bing Aerial. It will come up, and then you just click add. This is the bit where YouTube comes in useful, and this video will come in useful. Just, you know, if you quickly go onto YouTube and say how to add a Bing map or like a base map to QGIS, there'll be a 2-minute video to show you how to do it. Once it's there in this list, so these are all of the, once you've kind of used one, that base map will remain in your list of maps. And the ones I recommend are Bing Aerial, Google Satellite Hybrid, and then Open Topo Map. And what I'll do is I'll add 3 base maps to this. By double clicking them, basically they go into the map. Or if I click add, they would appear in my kind of queue into my GIS platform. And now what I want to do is just bring your attention over to the left-hand side. So in GIS, this layers field here on the left-hand side will show you all of the pieces of data which are currently held within your project, within your QGIS project. And so as we can see at the moment, I've got Bing Aerial, Google Satellite Hybrid, and Open Topo Map. The way or the position that each of these layers appear in this list is very important. Anything that sits at the top will appear above anything that sits beneath it. So at the moment, Bing Aerial is at the top, and so Bing Aerial is the thing that we can see. If I tick this button, this will turn this layer on and off. So if I click this tick, it now will turn this layer off. And now what we're seeing is the Google Satellite Hybrid, because the Google Satellite Hybrid is next at the top of the list. And this is why Bing Aerial is useful, because often Google Satellite is covered in snow. So there's not much hope in doing an assessment of bare peat with this, really. So if I tick the button for Bing Aerial, on it comes again, and there we go, we've got that. The other thing is, if I wanted to, you don't have to just turn things on and off. You can click and hold and then move them up and down. So if I move Bing Aerial to the bottom of this list, again, it's no longer at the top. It's no longer showing as the top one. If I tick this on and off, then I've got the topo map underneath it. Might just take a few minutes to load. Slowly it will load up, basically. But this is, so this, like I say, this side on the right hand side is very important, because these are the bits of data you're adding to this project, and that's how you can see them. So if I unclick everything, then nothing appears. If I click one, then that one appears. Sorry if this is super basic stuff, but I just want to make it as useful as we can. Now, going back to the PDF. So what I want to do is I want to put this PDF into GIS. And because this project has been created by GIS, it should be what's called a georeferenced PDF. So what it means is that that the image itself has a geographical position. So if you then pull it into GIS, it should match up with the with the base map that you've put it on. So all I've done there is I've gone into my downloads, and I literally just click and drag it into QGIS. Now, what this project developer does, and this is the most useful type of georeference PDF, is that not only are they giving us this image here, but all of the shapefiles and all of the data that's been used to create this map is also embedded in the file itself. And so all of these lines here are additional bits of data, additional layers, which are going to be added to this project. So if I click add layers here, it should think about it for a second. And now what we've got is all of that information has appeared in GIS. The first thing I'm going to do is move it above Bing Aerial so that the base map appears, the map appears above the base map. But obviously at the moment I'm zoomed in into a random position. So, it's difficult. How do I know where to go basically to view this map that I've just provided? You right click on the name of the layer that you've just imported. You could do any of them. The very top option is zoom to layer. So if you click that, you will very quickly be snapped to the position of this project within GIS. I'm just going to remove these other base maps because I think it's slowing it down a little bit. But this is how you would remove a layer. If you right click on the layer itself, you've got a number of options. So you've got things like zoom to layer, duplicate layer, remove layer. So I'm just removing those two. So here now I've got the project in GIS. And this georeference PDF not only shows me the map as we can see it, but I've also got a whole bunch of different elements here, different data layers beneath it. If I turn it on and off, the first thing I want to check is just make sure that I'm in the right place. So if I turn this on and off, I can see that this is perfectly aligned with the base map that I'm looking at. There will be occasions when the georeference PDF is not correctly aligned with the base map beneath it. We should hopefully kind of pick that up in the office, but there may be times when it's not picked up, and if that's the case, then you want to go back to the project developer and ask them if they can, if they can correctly georeference it. Basically, go back and raise the point that it's not matching up in GIS. So this, going back to the layers, basically you've got at the moment you've got like it cascades downwards essentially. So if I tick the very top level, then everything is turned off. But if I turn off just some of these, only certain layers of information are turned off and the rest of the ticks remain. So the rest of the layers will remain, but I'll just turn off one or two. When you've got a PDF which contains all of this additional information in it, and you put it into GIS, you'll see one of the lines will be like the actual layout, the map, the PDF that you've seen. And when you turn that on and off, what you're then able to see beneath it is the actual shape files that have been used to create this map. So if we zoom right in on this area, I can see that the Hag Gully is there. And if I turn the map on and off, as I'm doing here, just clicking it on and off, I can see why, I can see basically the actual data that feeds into that map. Are you all with me so far?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now what I want to start doing is, well, taking a look at this project with a bit more granular detail. So already, if we just look at this area, already I can see that. And well, let me just change something quickly. So before I go assessing, I want to make it more obvious for myself, but also to illustrate where the Hag Gullies are. Because at the moment it's easy to see them here, but it's more difficult to see them in this layer. What we've got here is you've got different assessment units. So the different pieces of kind of geographical data that's been added by the project developer can also be turned on and off. So it might be quite difficult for you guys to see this on the screen, but where they've drawn these Hag Gullies, if I turn this layer on and off, they kind of disappear and appear. You might not be able to see that because of the symbol is just a very thin black line. Are you finding it difficult to see it basically at this point?
Just about make them out if you squint.
Yeah, exactly. So it's quite difficult to see those black lines. Now, hopefully, it should be easier to see it because they turn pink. So each of these layers have properties, and the properties is basically it tells you how they appear within the map. So what I did is, in the same way that I was right-clicking on layers to remove them, now if I right-click on the layer, the very bottom option is properties. If I click properties, then a number of options are kind of appear for this particular layer. I don't know why this is not. There we go. So you've got things like symbology, which is how it appears within the map. You've got labels. So, is there a label applied to it? You don't really need to know anything about any of these apart from symbology. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a different option just to illustrate this point. So I'm going to go into properties now for a different assessment unit. I'll do this one. Sorry, let me zoom out a bit so we can see what the impact is. Right, I'll do this one because I can see it coming on and off. So I right click, I go to properties. I go to symbology. At the top, it will say just embedded symbols. All you want to do is just change this to single symbol. I know this is getting quite technical. You may not use this massively, but I'm just showing you how to do it. Basically, what you're trying to do here is just select. It says simple fill. It's just going to. It's basically going to fill this shape file with this green color. Hopefully. So this area now, the 30-meter buffer area, I thought it was a different area that was turning on and off. If I can basically change the color of this symbol to fill it with orange or green. I can select any of the ones from down at the bottom of this, and it will change the color of that symbol, so it's easier to view.
And it's useful to change the opacity. It says opacity, like the opaqueness, isn't it? So you could like reduce the opaqueness so that you can see it more clearly, but still see what's underneath a bit.
Exactly, yeah. So basically here you've got how opaque it is. So I can move the slider up and down, and if I press apply down at the bottom, it will then make that field appear more opaque. And this will be very useful for a different way of assessing baseline that we'll look at shortly. This is solely to help you see it. This is probably like as technical as it gets, I would say, is changing this sort of stuff. So I would encourage you all to have a bit of a play around. You may not need it. You may not need to do this a lot, but this is there for you. So going back to the project, basically what I'm trying to do here is just make sure that I can see easily where the hag gullies are. I could see it fairly easily without changing it on my own personal computer, but obviously for you guys, it's easier now to see it in pink. So here's a nice big pink line. Now I know which one is my pink line, so I can turn that on and off. And by turning it on and off, I can see whether or not that pink line has been drawn over a hag gully system, which falls beneath it. So in this area, I would say is pretty good. They haven't mapped this portion here, despite there being, an indication of a linear feature, and they haven't mapped this portion here. Going back to the discussion we had earlier, I expect the reason why they've done that is because these may well be vegetated. So this looks to me, by the fact that there's quite a large shadow there, that's probably quite a steep or steep enough hag to have caused that shadow. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense as to why they've mapped that as actively eroding. These areas here from the photographs, we saw that it was quite a vegetated site. So that may be why that they've not mapped that as actively eroding. So I do this and I turn them on and off, and I kind of have a look around the general project overall. I can see hags, I can see linear features, I can see, I can see all of these things that then appear on the map. So I would say that I'm still thinking so far so good with this project. Does anyone have any thoughts, any comments? Are you happy with this? Does this all make sense at the moment?
Yep.
So far, okay, this all looks pretty good. Okay, we'll get into it. Okay, so now I've looked at the PDF, I've looked at the photos, I'm now looking at GIS. I'm still pretty happy that they've mapped it accurately enough. Now the final level, the final assessment, the final thing that we want to do is perhaps we want to target some of the specific photo points that initially appeared on their PDF. So going back to here, maybe we want to actually go and look at a particular point and know the precise photo which correlates to that particular point. So let's use this area down at the bottom here as the example. In the data that has been added to this left-hand side, they have included the photo points. So here there is a layer which is called November photo points. There, hopefully, if they've got photos that are included in the map and have been embedded into the georeference PDF, it's obvious what they're called. Generally, it will have the word photo in it, you would hope. But you will need to just like read through this list to figure out which one it is. So if I tick this on and off, and this is going to be difficult because the dots shrink as I zoom in, so it might be difficult for you to see, but there's a purple dot like here which is appearing and disappearing. Because it's difficult to see, I'm just going to change the properties again. So I go to properties, I go from embedded symbol to single symbol, and it gives me simple marker, and I'm just going to basically choose this red diamond and apply. Right, so now hopefully you can see that red diamond's there. It's a bit clearer. Is that like, can you see this basically? So I just shout out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to make it easier for the people on the call. I'm going to make it slightly bigger. Again, right click properties. We've got the size and so on. And I'll change it blue. Why not? So these are the photo points. And I'm just going to turn off this so that we can see where they fall. So I'll turn off the Hag Gully layer so I can see where they fall. Now, in the top level, at the very top of GIS, you've got a couple of kind of cursor options. At the moment, I've just got the hand, so I can click with my left hand and I can drag the map around. But if I click on the photo point, nothing happens. What I need to do is I need to change my cursor to this one here, which is the identify feature. So it's the mouse, it's the cursor with the eye next to it. And when you've clicked that, the cursor changes to a mouse with an eye next to it. And basically what this is going to do is allow you to click on a feature that appears in the map, in this case, one of the photo points, and it's going to bring up some information about it. Or it's going to bring up some information about the location where you've just clicked. So on the right hand side now, so in this, if I start clicking around on the map, on the right hand side, this is going to tell me what layers of information appear at the point I've just clicked. So if I click this one here, it's telling me that the point I've just clicked falls within the 30-meter buffer area around the Hag Gully. It also identifies that there is a photo point that falls within that point, and that's also been highlighted in red. And it's also telling me that the point falls within the wider project boundary. These three bits of information correlate directly to the data layers that appear over here. And this makes sense to me at the moment because, yeah, the point that I've clicked does fall in the buffer area. There is a photo there and it's in the wider project boundary. At the moment, I've turned off the Hag Gully. So if I click there now again, what you'll notice is that the Hag Gully is also highlighted in red. So when I now look onto this right-hand side, not only have I got that 30-meter buffer area, but I've also got the Hag Gully itself. Importantly, though, for us, what we care about at this point is the photo. So what I want to do is I want to know what this photo is called, because I want to basically find that photograph in SharePoint. So cascading down, what I can see here is that the file name is listed here. And again, basically when you click the identify feature, it gives you all of the data that's associated with that piece of information. So in this case, what they've done is they've given us some information that's probably been collected in the field. So the altitude, it's given us the actual coordinates of it, but it's also given us the file name. And this, for the purpose of assessing the photo, is the most important thing. What I can do is right click on where it says file name and I can copy attribute value. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm just copying that file name. What I can then do is go back to SharePoint, where previously we were just clicking through all of the photos. They've got very, very long names. But now I have that file name saved and I can copy and paste it directly into the search bar. If I just search for it, if I just press enter, this file will now come up. I can click on it. So let's have a quick look. So if we just think about where we are, and I'm now going to click back to the pan hand, so I can just move this around. You can also move these back and forth. This is the photo we're looking at. To me, that is right on the edge of a hag gully. So what am I expecting to see in the photo? A hag gully. And there we go. There it is. So I'm happy that that makes sense. Let's do another one. So this one, I'll click this one. I find the photo point. I go down to the file name. I right click, copy attribute value, go back to SharePoint, close this. I enter the new file name into there. So this one is, again, let's have a look. Okay, so it's in what they're calling a hag gully. But this might be one of those situations that you described, Eamon, earlier, where actually you've got it's quite obvious to me that there is a peat bank here, but it certainly looks a lot shallower here. So let's see what the photo looks like, whether that gives us any indication of that. Just let it load. So here, right, so you've got quite this is quite vegetated to me. I mean, it looks quite steep in parts. And you can see how this would have been picked up potentially by the, how this matches sort of what we're expecting to see here, perhaps. But you may start questioning, is this actually actively eroding, or, have they over-egged the pudding here a bit by drawing such a large, long line linear feature? May want to have a look at some of the other points that fall on this hag gully.
That one just, yeah.
This one here?
I was going to say the one to the left, that one, yeah, that looks.
So we'll have a look at this one. We'll copy the attribute value. We'll go have a look. Copy and paste it into this. And this is why SharePoint is super useful. It's so much better than the other system we were using. So yeah, I can't. So again, I'm not sure if this is loaded yet, but from this, I would say that that's a pretty, you've got that gully there, and there's no doubt that there's a dip there, but it's that's highly vegetated, this particular part of the site. So I'll say, right, okay, they've made one mistake. Is this mistake now repeated everywhere? And you start having a quick look around the rest of the site, and you copy the attribute value for another project, and we throw it over and put it in, and we wait for it to load. We look at this one again, and right, I see. Okay, so they've now said that this whole feature is actively eroding as well. But when I look at the photograph, I do not see any flat bare peat within this site. I see a very vegetated, not particularly steep peat cliffs within this site. So I'm now starting to think, okay, it may be that there's parts of this site which have been mapped as actively eroding, but actually they're very much vegetated. And we repeat this process, we go through, and you don't need to do it for every single one. There's no need for you to do this for every single photograph. If every time that you click on the photograph, it matches precisely what you see or expect to see. So here we've got quite a clear feature, and there it is, So you're building up that understanding. You're thinking, how have they consistently incorrectly mapped these features? And I would say that on the most part, they would have mapped this pretty well, and that most of these will be actively eroding features. I knew that this area was worth questioning because I looked at it previously. So that's why I've homed in on this area. So let's just do one more example, and let's try and find actually where the bare peat pan is. It's useful to have the map open elsewhere, so you can always refer back to the map because it can be useful to have it. So I believe there was some bare peat up here. Right, so they've taken a photo up here right next to an area which appears to be bare peat. So let's go and have a little look at that. because look, and this is a good point. So on the air, you know, from the satellite, this portion of the site is shrouded in cloud. So it's kind of, if they only provided drone imagery which is shrouded in cloud, would that be good enough? You know, it's definitely worth questioning. So right click here, find the file name, have a look at this one. Go back to SharePoint. Right click, have a look. Will it have Flat Bear Pete in it? Look at that. It's, when it loads, it will be Flat Bear Pete, shrouded in mist. So are we happy with this? Does this all make sense?
Yep.
With this project developer, what I would do is I'll go back to them and say, yeah, I've had a look at your baseline evidence. I think the vast majority of the site has been mapped accurately. I would say, you know, I would basically highlight this area down in the south, and I would say I've had a look at some of these photos, and it looks like this area has been basically that some of your assessment units, your hag gullies, are taken into consideration areas which are vegetated. So please, can you reassess this area and just redraw this line, or, you know, a couple of examples, so that they are only taking into consideration the area which is actively eroding. But on the whole, I you know, from what I've seen so far, this is pretty good. I would say they're not massively under egging it. They're not massively over egging it. You know, most of it looks pretty good. So that is one.
Thanks.
So this is another example. So I'm just going to very quickly do the same sort of thing. The project developer here has provided an assessment unit map which looks like this, but they also provided a separate photo. So they provided a separate map which looks like this, and this is primarily for the photo locations. So in here you've got the photo locations, and they've included a label for each of these points. So this is this project here, Strathconnard West, and in the supporting documents folder again, you've got this this map that I've just shown us, and we then also got lots of the photo points. Ideally, what you would want to see is this, and what I might go back to this project developer and say is, with the map with the photo points on it, you want to kind of see the assessment units beneath them as well. You want to see some of those. You want to see basically this map with the photo points overlaid, so you can tell what you're looking at a bit better. But again, I can download these. Sorry. I can take these two that I've just downloaded, photo point location and the map, come up with this, add my layers. Is this going to crash now? Okay, so so same sort of thing here. Basically, the only difference is, as you can see with this one, we do not have all of the data. So in this, all of the assessment unit data which we had in the previous project, we do not have it this time round. Luckily, we do have the photo points. So on the left-hand side, we've got, I've added 3 layers basically. Well, I've added 2 maps to this. I've added the assessment unit map, the photo map, and the photo map has included the selected photo points. So again, it goes single, and I can just do this. make it super obvious where they are. If I move the photo point, remember, if I move the layer above one, above the other, then the photo points will fall above the base map. If I move them above this map up here and then turn this on, the photos, those photo points are now above this area, above the assessment unit map. So again, what I can do is zoom in on this area here. This to me looks like a Bear Peat polygon that they've drawn. There's a photograph which has been taken next to it. The file name is SCW17. I copy that. I go back to SharePoint. And, you know, these ones are fairly short file names, so you could just probably write that in rather than copy and pasting. You know, is this what I was expecting to see? No, there's, you know, the photo. I was expecting to see the photo, this flat Bear Peat area. Might be that it's looking this other way. If I turn the base map on and off, I can zoom in and have a look at the feature. Okay, so in this instance, what they've done is like this is a lot of a micro erosion in a small short area. So they're basically classifying this whole area as Bear Peat. This is where, you know, you could question this as saying, I think this is fine in this instance because it's such a tight and complex area of erosion that will be treated as a single feature in the field. Don't know what your thoughts on that would be, Eamon and Lucy, from your perspective.
I think so, yeah, looking at it. Otherwise, you're going to end up drawing spaghetti on there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to look a bit silly.
Exactly. I think that this is about, I would let them get away. I would say I would let them get away with that, to be honest.
When you get really isolated, when you get big areas like that, like a kind of archipelago of the vegetation on top of these things that you're pointing at, the small
kind
of sections of intact vegetation is usually dying when you get somewhere like that. It's drying out quite badly. So I think
they wouldn't look to re-profile this, would they? They would basically just take that off, and then, you know, try and cover what they could with the vegetation that's there, and then probably brash it, put vegetation over it, I suspect, and then maybe put some dams around it to hold the water back.
Yeah, I think it would get treated just as one big area. So I think,
So that, I would say that that's fine. Similarly here, like you can kind of see that these, you know, that they've drawn some of the hags and gullies, and then some of the areas which are a bit larger and flatter they've drawn as the peat pans. And
again, it's like when you start looking at multiple points, you see that their approach, you can kind of get into their head.
Exactly. That's kind of it. It's like, have they just completely misunderstood the process and, you know, done this in completely wrong, or is it justified? And if you can kind of think that, as you say, if you can get into their head and you can think like, all right, this might be the reason why they've done this, then that's great, you know. But if you start looking at all of these things and there's no real explanation as to what they've done, you would question it with them. So if we just look over here, we've got these are drainage ditches we've got now. These are drainage lines. So you can, this is why the projects which are only drainage lines are good, because it's very obvious from above what it is. You know, you can start looking at these projects and get quite granular detail. So you might start question with here, you know, it's like you might start questioning some of this as to whether or not I can see some of these drainage lines that they've drawn. You can try and use a different one of the different base maps to see if there's a slightly better view of it, which gives you more of an indication of these lines. This one's obvious to me, but I would say that some of these are a little bit less obvious. you know, is that a drainage ditch?
Did anyone, just wondering if you know the history of this, did anyone request they went back and got some more photographs? Because they've taken plenty of photographs, but just not very useful ones from the ones we've sort of picked up so far.
This site that this one we're looking at right now. As in, like, when you say not very useful, they're kind of just fall in the middle of nowhere.
Well, there's a few of them like that, and then, I mean, although just as I was saying that, there's a lot. I've just noticed there's a lot of photographs that are plumb on the drainage ditches.
Yeah, I mean, so this project, yeah, I don't think this project has actually yet gone for validation. So looking at the coverage of the site, so this is, I would say that this is kind of the minimum. This is on the light side. It's definitely on the light side. You know, there's a portion of the site here where there isn't photographs. It might be, and I'm not sure because I didn't check beforehand, whether we've got drone imagery for this site as well. So that would help if we do. But
I think
yeah,
I think it's the thing that's jumping out for me with that is it seems like there's only one photo point next to the Flat Bear Peat, Peat area, and so we're kind of looks like they probably don't have any photographs showing their Flat Bear Peat as a minimum.
Exactly. So the only one was that one that I looked at, and that, you know, does that look like Flat Bear Peat? Not really, no. In fact, no, it doesn't at all. So yes, so this is something that we may want to have a look at and ask them if they've got any additional evidence. So let's just have, so this one should hopefully be, oh, sorry, what number are we? 42. We're expecting to see a kind of a drainage ditch for hag and a gully neighbouring. It's wet, so it's different, you know. This site at the moment, I'm like, is this good enough at the moment? So that's a big overview photo. You know, there's lots. So these are all the linear features. So these are all the drainage ditches. So these should map pretty well to the site. That's that one we just looked at, which is the Flat Bear area. Yeah. I'm starting to think with this site, yeah, maybe having looked at the baseline images, I can see that, you know, the drainage ditches are pretty clear, but there's not a huge amount of evidence about the, as you rightly say, Lucy, Flat Bear Peat, and the hag gullies are also not super obvious from aerial imaging. Some of them are, you know, it's. So you may want to go, so I would probably say in this instance, I'll go back to the project developer and say, have you got any additional photographic evidence of the Flat Bear Peat that's been mapped as Flat Bear? And the other thing that I noticed as well is, and it's difficult. Oh, actually, no, this is now going back to a point that we covered earlier about opacity, because we do not have the shape files for this site that are embedded in the PDF. One way that we can make it easier for us to assess the baseline, like the assessment units against the situation on the ground, is we can right click on the map that appears, and we can go to transparency, and we can reduce the transparency down to 20%. And now what I can see is I can, you know, see the kind of the shadow of these drainage ditches, or the assessment units on the base map. And what I'm seeing here is there is a lot of rocky outcrops. So lots of these assessment units are including areas of rock. And there may be deep peat in and amongst that, but the rock is visible from the aerials. So that is going at the very top of my list of issues with this map. Lots and lots of rocky features on this site. And that is not peat, like that is not being restored in any way, shape or form. So this project developer needs to go back and clip out the larger rocky areas. So this project developer is going to lose a reasonable portion of some of these assessment unit areas. You know, look, they have no excuse because they have cut out that portion for precisely that reason. But then they've stopped. So you ask them why they've done that. And you know what, that's probably taken me, it's probably only taken me about 20 minutes to do this assessment. So it doesn't, once you know how to upload the file into these things and kind of move back and forth between SharePoint and GIS, it doesn't necessarily take very long to kind of make a good assessment and figure out what are the big danger points here. Wonder if there's any photographs of these areas. Just gonna have a quick look at this one because I think this might be, yeah, so SW12. So here, this is that photo looking over this area. So looking over this flat area, I think, kind of in this direction. So this is obviously that rise there. I would imagine is that rise there. So I'm using the photographs. I'm looking at the map. I'm thinking, right, there's rocky areas. They've included the rocky areas here. There's a couple of photos nearby. Let's have a look at those just to see if that backs up my hypothesis that maybe they're incorporating an area which they shouldn't be. And we'll raise it as a question. Yeah, okay. So these layers, these basically are enormous files. I didn't realize they had them in here. So these layers are basically the drone imagery. Which one did I just drop? I just dragged in the TIFF. So the TIFF file is the one we're looking for. So this is the drone imagery. So okay, so sorry, I didn't even clock that they had drone imagery with us. What I've just done then is drag this drone imagery into GIS, overlaid it with everything else. And does this change, does this change our assessment of this project in any way? I think it just makes it, it makes it clearer that there is rocky outcrops. Go to that curved line that I was looking at earlier, see if that is any better. It's up there. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, okay, so here, so basically this is the drone imagery has now given us a slightly higher resolution image of the site, which now makes up for the fact that they don't have as much, as higher coverage of photos as perhaps you would like, because we are able to do a pretty good high level assessment of this project still. They've mapped this entire area as flat bare. I would not say that that is obviously flat bare from the drone imagery, and I would go back. This project developer will be questioned about their map for sure, because this is not like this area. I'm happy that that area is flat bare. I'm happy that they've mapped that. I question that whole area is flat bare. However, as we discussed a moment ago, if they come back and say that this whole area will be, is going to be treated as an individual restoration feature, we're not doing any reprofiling, it's going to be treated and revegetated as a single piece. That's justification, which is then used as evidence moving forward. But just the map and the baseline evidence they provided is something worth questioning. So have they extended that? Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks.
This is why the drone imagery is good. It's because basically they've got nowhere to hide then, and they're like, yeah, here's a, So again, it's like I could see how they could justify that they've mapped this as a single area, but yeah, you just need to ask the question and then see if you're happy with their answer. Okay. Like I said, I think the main thing to remember is it's never going to be 100% perfect. You do not have to look at every single feature with a fine-tooth comb, because it will take you forever to do that. The main thing is just to build up your overall view and feeling of the way that they've mapped their project. If they are consistently doing things wrong, then it's worth a question. If there are, if there's things where you like in this site where you've got this flat bare areas, you're like, they've got no photos, they do have drone imagery, so let's have a look at those areas, and it doesn't look quite right, raise it as a question. Give them the opportunity to respond and justify why they've mapped it in that way. If you're happy with their justification, then the map can remain the same. If you're not happy with their justification, and there's no evidence to the contrary, then you can ask them and should ask them to redraw it to remove features that aren't there, or remove rocky outcrops that are there, or whatever else it is. So yeah, I know it does come down to kind of experience and doing it a few times. You get a good idea of how well some project developers do it and how poorly some others do it. But hopefully this kind of gives you a basis to go off when you're doing it yourselves. Shall we leave it there?
That's smashing. Thanks, Jonathan.
I've got one question which I might be able to answer just by looking a bit more carefully. But when we just glance at the key documents and the supporting documents, is there a quick way of knowing whether a map is auto-rectified and whether it's georeferenced, whether you can drag it into GIS? I'm just trying to have a quick look to kind of look into that myself, but I'm just voicing that question really. So like
the quickest way is just to open GIS and drag it in.
Right. So but by just glancing, you can't just tell whether or not.
Unfortunately not. So
yeah. Okay. So like with the Strathconnard West one, peat depth carbon map. Yeah, it's like it just says .pdf at the end. So if I glanced at that, I wouldn't know whether it's a straightforward PDF or whether I can get it into GIS.
No, annoyingly not. I would say that this probably almost certainly is georeferenced PDF. Like, but if they create, look, let's have a look at it. If it's a PDF which looks like this, has coordinates on it and has things like a north arrow and a scale bar, it will have been created using GIS, and so it will usually be georeferenced. So it kind of, you can sort of look at something. If it's a PDF and it looks like this, you can be pretty confident that it will be georeferenced, but the easiest way is just download it and drag it in, drag it into this document.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it should only take a couple of seconds basically just to bosh it straight in.
Yeah.
I think the majority of the ones that you get are georeferenced in some way.
Yeah, most of them should be by now. I mean, you might get the odd one, which is still sending in like a JPEG, and kind of we want to encourage. I've changed the wording of our emails to say that they need to provide georeferenced PDFs as the assessment unit map. So hopefully you'll see less and less of the old school versions. But you know, Phil, if you want, you're well within your rights to message them and say, send this to me as a georeferenced PDF, or this isn't correctly georeferenced, can you sort it out? If you feel you need to. Okay, marvelous. All right, guys.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Like I say, we'll send this around now after the phone call, so it's there for you as a resource. YouTube's great. Otherwise, let me know, and I'll try and answer any questions. And yeah, we'll go from there. And Eamon, I think what we'll do now is we'll send you over the mock validation and get that over to you, so you've got something to start looking at. And yes, I think that's the last of it.
Smashing.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Grand, thanks,
Thank you,
Jonathan.
guys.
Great.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
See you later.
Cheers all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.